Okay, this is Ed Stetzer Live, and I'm Ed Stetzer. I'm your host this and every Saturday at this time. We have a little technological challenge. That's why it took a little longer for me to join you. And I'm here teaching a week-long class at Wycliffe Hall at Oxford University, and that'll enable me to teach these Church of England ordinands, folks who are preparing for ministry in the Church of England. This is an evangelical Christian college seminary at Oxford, which we don't have those same kinds of things in the U.S., but they have an evangelism workshop. So I'm here helping them to be effective in sharing the gospel. I bring my Talbot students with you. I'm the dean of the Talbot School of Theology, so I've got a group of them, and we have this joint class. So it is cold here, unlike in Southern California, but it's good to be here and to be with you. So I apologize for the technological challenge. Merle, if you can just tell me in my ear, are we doing okay? Can everyone hear everything? Okay, good deal. Good. Merle's telling me we need a little more time because we're working on a couple of technological challenges, but I'm going to talk to you today in and around the theme of Christmas. Now, of course, it's Advent, and we'll explain that in just a little bit. Christmas doesn't take place till December 25th, but I'm just happy to be in the Christmas mood and the Christmas spirit, I guess you might say. I was talking to Donna, my wife, yesterday, and she's telling me that I'm actually here in England, but she's over there setting up the Christmas lights, and so we're getting in that Christmas spirit. So it seems appropriate to start having some conversations around our Christmas theme. So that being said, our guest today has a new book in and around a Christmas theme. We're going to talk to her today about that. She's an author, a Bible teacher, and television host. Sheila Walsh has actually been inspiring families for over 30 years, spoken to over 6 million people worldwide. She currently co-hosts several shows, including Praise and Better Together on TBN. And her books have sold nearly 6 million copies, including It's Okay to Not Be Okay, Praying Women, and The Hope of Heaven. And today we're talking about her new book called The Little Drummer Girl, which is just out for the Advent season. Sheila, thanks for joining us on the program.
Ed, I love talking to you. You're one of my favorite people to ever be interviewed by.
Oh, you're super fun. I wish technologically I wasn't having difficulties. As you might have heard, I'm here in the UK. You're close to where you're from.
Well, then you need to go to Marks and Spencer's and get a Christmas cake.
Okay, there you go. That's Marks and Spencer's. You're going to kind of make fun of me, but I love going to the train station and getting those little sandwiches, those Marks and Spencer sandwiches that, and I love them. I know it's like 7-Eleven food, but I think they're great.
No, I absolutely agree. When I was a student at London Theological Seminary, that was my go-to meal.
So tell us a little bit about the book, The Little Drummer Girl, to help us get started.
Well, it's really, the reason I wanted to write it was I feel like there's something about, particularly the culture in America, where we assume that all our kids should go to college and do really well, that there's certain jobs that you should aim for, that there's certain things that we categorize as successful. And I kind of wanted to fight against that a little bit, in a broken down way for children. But just the main character, Isabella, is convinced that if she got what she considers the main part in the nativity play, which would be the angel, because she would actually have lines, that would be, she would be the star of the show, and discovers that she doesn't get that part. And it turns out to be an amazing thing, because one of the things that I've talked to my son about, when he was ready to go to graduate school, he's about to do his doctorate, but when he was ready to go to graduate school, I thought that SMU was going to be the right place for him to do his clinical psychology. And so, like a typically annoying mother, I had a couple of friends there, a couple of professors, and called them and smoothed the path. And then he didn't get in. And I remember the conversation we had that night. When I said to him, Christian, I want to come to the place in my life where I celebrate every door that God closes as much as I celebrate every door he opens. And it turned out, he then went on to UNT and did his graduate work, and it was the best thing possible. So even though it's a children's book, the message is kind of like don't assume you know the right path. Kind of going back to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, my favorite scriptures. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight.
Love that. Love that. And of course, we think of these things in and around the Christmas season and more. And I'm interested a little bit how you're preparing as personally and as your family. And, I think one of the things I'm going to invite people to call and share some of their own Christmas preparations or stories. And so how do you start thinking about the season? I guess first question is like, when do you start thinking about the season?
Well, way after my husband does.
Okay.
Barry he's getting worse every year. This year we started in October. We already have 6 Christmas trees up in our house. And outside, we live in a townhouse around a lake with all sorts of other lovely, normal people. But if you were just to go past at nighttime, you could literally land a plane on our lawn because the Christmas lights are so bright and sparkling. And we have a nativity, and we have 2 5-foot nutcrackers. I mean, it's just, he takes Elf to a whole next level.
Oh my! Well, that's for me. You can't put up your Christmas tree until the day after Thanksgiving. Anything before that is, I don't know, it's heretical even. So to do that, so you have to pace yourself. When did your tree grow up, or do you do a tree?
Oh yeah, we do a tree. We do many trees. The only one I do, because my husband's kind of perfectionist. He likes things to be hung equidistant on the tree. I'm not so into the equidistant. So I have one tree that's mine, and on it is everything my son's ever made since he was a little boy. And I love them because some of the ornaments are so terrible, but they're so perfect. Like they've got Mary and Joseph and the baby, but Joseph is like so much shorter than Mary. And I mean, I don't know, he could have been shorter than Mary, but he's significantly shorter than Mary. So it's one of my favorite things to put on the tree every year.
Love that. And for us and for our family, we have now adult daughters, so we don't always know when they're going to show up or not. Hopefully, I think they're all coming for Christmas this year. We just got together for Thanksgiving, so family always plays such a key part of that as well. But I was really encouraged that my girls were remembering that we always read the Luke story Christmas morning. The Luke, there's different versions of the nativity narrative, and we use the Luke version. How do you think about keeping Christ centered in the Christmas story and this kind of your own life, your family, and more?
I love that you mentioned the Luke version, because what we've started doing is on December the 1st, we start reading the Gospel of Luke. So, because there's 24 chapters, and so it takes you right up to Christmas Eve. So if anybody's a little behind, this is just December the 6th. You could read the first 6 chapters and catch up, but it takes you through the whole story until the glorious, triumphal resurrection of Christ. And I think that's one of the ways that I kind of center my heart, is to understand that, unto us a child is born, but it's such a huge story. It's where history was literally split in 2, where the Creator was willing to become part of his creation. Absolutely blows me away.
I love that. Okay, so then where did you get the idea? And this is not the first time or thing you've written in and around Christmas, but when did you get the idea to write the little drummer girl? Which I don't know if I've said, because it was a little chaotic at the beginning. I was trying to figure out the technology. It's a children's book. So where does the idea come from? Who's it geared towards? Tell us more about that.
Well, it's funny because when my son was younger, when he was in elementary school, I remember dropping him off in carpool one morning, and I used to love taking him and picking him up in carpool because I could always read him like a book. I mean, he wore his emotions well. But this one particular morning, after I'm behind a car, the dad's dropping off his daughter, and it just was darling and hilarious to me because her hair was all over the place, and she had one sock up and one sock down. So it kind of looked to me, this might sound a little sexist, but it kind of looked to me that perhaps Dad got her ready that morning. But what really touched my heart, was I rolled down the window and I listened, and he took her by the shoulders and he looked in her and he said, "Have a good day, darling. You are beautiful. I love you." And she totally believed him, absolutely believed him. And not having grown up with that myself, there was something about that. So with my little drummer girl, Isabella, she's not the perfect little blonde, blue-eyed girl. Her hair's kind of all over the place, but she has a joy in living, which I think is, the other thing I wanted to convey through the book was you're allowed to be disappointed. I think sometimes we get this impression that if we're going to be good Christian parents, then children have to be, happy and accepting of everything. And I've discovered that that's not realistic, and I don't believe that's what God invites either. I think you get to say, "I'm disappointed, I don't like this, I don't understand." And you get to come to God like that.
Okay, hold on for just a second. We're going to continue our conversation with Sheila Walsh and your calls. Our phone number is 877-548-3675. We're going to give away a few copies of Little Drummer Girl. We're going to take your calls with questions for Sheila or sharing your own Christmas traditions, how you keep Christ in Christmas, and more. 877-548-3675. Stay with us.
Hey, we are back live here from Oxford in the UK. Sheila, where did you grow up? I knew you went to school in London, but you didn't grow up in England. Where'd you grow up?
No, I grew up in a small town called Ayr on the west coast of Scotland. It's a small fishing town. It was a lovely place to be from, very, right by the ocean. I used to go down in the morning and watch the fishing boats come in. And it was a big farming community. And my mum was a farm accountant, which was excellent because it meant she did the books for the farmers and the shepherds, which meant I got early access to watch the spring lambs being born. That it was a pretty lovely place to grow up.
I guess so. It's super fun. Of course, for a lot of Americans, we don't know that Scotland and England are separate countries in one nation. It's all kind of confusing to us. It should be simpler than that, but the UK is, it's interesting.
While we're having technical difficulties, the joy of live radio, but the fact that you're doing it from Oxford is just absolutely brilliant. But let me share just one of my very favorite Christmas memories. And to me, it summarizes what the whole point of the Advent season is about. It was Christmas Eve, and my best friend Andrea and I, we decided to take a walk down by the harbour before the 11 o'clock Christmas Eve service, just to see if there was anybody that we could invite to come and be part of worship with us. And there were a couple of people, and we brought cups of coffee, we gave them coffee. But then I saw this one gentleman who was lying by the side of the road, and you could kind of tell he was drunk or in some kind of distress. So I went up to him and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Sir, would you like a cup of coffee?" And as he turned his face toward me, I knew him. I recognized him. He used to be part of our church. He used to be part of our choir. He had a beautiful singing voice, but somehow through that beast of alcoholism, he had kind of lost his footing. And I said to him, "Hey, it's me. Why don't you come with me?" And his thing was, "There's no way. I cannot walk into the church like this." So I said, "Okay, here's the deal. What we're going to do is we'll wait till the service starts. Then you and I we'll slip in at the back. We'll sit in the very back row, and we'll leave right before it ends. You and I will slip out." And I'll never forget that service, sitting beside this darling man, and during the singing of the Christmas carols and things, just these tears pouring down his face. And I remember just kind of putting my hand on his shoulder and just quietly praying for him. "Lord, this is one of your lost lambs." And after the service, he and I slipped out and he disappeared. Well, 2 years later, when I came back from seminary for my Christmas Eve service, there he was in the choir singing the solo. And I thought, that is the absolute message of Christmas, that it doesn't matter where you've come from, it doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't matter how badly you have failed, you are invited to come. There's always room at the table. And so to see the way that God can restore a life, and I think that would be my prayer for every single one of your listeners, Ed, that I don't know what kind of year 2025 has been for most of them. I personally have found it really, really difficult. I have struggled this year. But one of the things I love is that I cannot count on my emotions, because emotions do not have brains, but I can count on the Word of God. And I think of that verse in James where it says, "Draw near to God, and He will draw near to you." So I think for me, for all your listeners, it simply would be a call to come back into God's presence, to let Him love you no matter where you find yourself right now.
Love it, love it. And I appreciate it. I apologize for the technological challenges, but we've got a little bit of a backup for the moment. But and I love that focus. And one of the things I love about you, even as you share, it's been a difficult year. For many of us for decades, your honesty and transparency has been just moving. But I think also your faithfulness over those decades. That's why whenever Sheila Walsh has a new book or a new conversation, we want to have her on, and we appreciate it. Let me remind people as well that, and we're going to go to Penny in just a second on the phone, but let me remind you can call in. Maybe you want to share some ways you're keeping a Christmas focused on Christ, or a Christmas tradition, or a question for Sheila about hers. Our number is 877-548-3675. Again, that's 877-548-3675. So let's go to Sheila in Alabama. Sheila, you're live on the air. Go ahead with your question or your comment.
Yes, I'm Penny, and I'm asking Sheila some of her favorite sacred Christmas songs.
Oh, I love that. That's a softball for you, Sheila. So what do you think?
I love that. And honestly, one of my absolute favorites is Silent Night. And I'll tell you why, because it was written as a poem in the 1800s. A young Austrian priest wrote this as a poem. And then he got a friend of his to put music to it. And he wanted something that would encourage the people in his village, because they were coming out of the Napoleonic Wars that had been devastating. So many families had missing people at their tables. And so that it was sung there for the very first time. And they had no idea how God would use this one beautiful song through the ages. So fast forward to World War I. It's the worst of the time. It's Christmas Eve, but World War I was such a harsh, brutal up close and personal war with gas, mustard gas and in trenches. And the Pope even that year suggested that there should be a ceasefire on Christmas Eve, but they couldn't get Germany and the United Kingdom to agree. But then on that Christmas Eve, in the freezing cold, with all these young boys on both sides, I'm sure who just wanted to be home, this one gentleman who used to be with the Berlin Opera stood up and began to sing Silent Night in German. And one or two of the British soldiers who were there said there was just silence across this vast space as suddenly, because they recognized the tune, but they didn't know those words. But then after he had sung for a while, the British soldiers joined in and began to sing it in English. And it was like, one gentleman said it was as if for those few moments there was a ceasefire. And I think, wouldn't that be our prayer for everyone for Christmas, that there would be a ceasefire in our own souls? There's so much that's not right and not good. But every time I sing Silent Night, I think of that young German officer standing up on a battlefield on a freezing cold night to sing about the true meaning of Christmas.
Fascinating. It's interesting. I heard a story like that. I heard that story, and I thought, that sounds like a urban legend, but it's actually not. It's actually a pretty fascinating story and a great story of the power of even the Christian message. I wish it wasn't just the Christmas truce, but lend to an end to the war. And we pray for that day when all those things do indeed happen. Super question, Penny, if you hold on the line too, we're going to give you a copy of The Little Drummer Girl by Sheila Walsh and her new resource children's book. And also, we've got several others to give as way to insightful callers or with questions or comments. Our phone number is 877-548-3675. Maybe you got a question for Sheila Walsh. Maybe you got a Christmas tradition to share. I'm concerned. I don't know. I'm not being Scroogey about it, but I'm concerned that sometimes we do get so caught up in the consumerism. So one of the things we did, and I don't know if my children always like this, we always made a commitment to make sure the largest gift we gave at Christmas time was actually to the Lord somehow. We typically give to something called the Lottie Moon Offering for International Missions. We want to see the gospel spread around the world. What are some ways or things that you have done to seek to keep Christ?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you do that. And it's something that we've done for years with my brother and my sister and I. We live in different parts of the world. My brother and his family live in Cambridge in England. My sister lives in Scotland, and I live in Dallas, Texas. But every year we get together and we talk about it. And instead of giving each other gifts, we choose a charity that we believe has really shown over the previous year to be the hands and feet of Jesus in the world. And then that's what we do. We all contribute our biggest gift to that particular charity instead of giving things. I do not need one more sweater, let's just face it. And my husband does not need more socks. So it's a way of being able to say, it's like when I think about Christmas, that God was willing to become flesh so that we could become sons of God, then I think when we can keep our eyes focused outside of ourselves, it just makes the whole season so much more joyful.
Yeah, I love it. I guess I was a little surprised that your favorite song wasn't The Little Drummer Boy, since you're writing about the little drummer girl. So where did the inspiration of that particular title come from? Because I can't imagine, The Little Drummer Boy, my wife pointed out to me that having a newborn and having a little drummer show up would not be well received. So how did that come into your theme?
That's so funny. And she's absolutely right. Well, actually, it came from last Christmas. We'll go somewhere snowy at Christmas. We're not this year. This year we decided we were going to stay home. But last year we went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And it was beautiful, surrounded by the Teton Mountains, covered in snow. But on Christmas Eve, I wanted to find a Christmas Eve service. And so we found this little church downtown in Jackson Hole. And we got there early enough to be able to get seats because it was packed. And they were doing a nativity play with the children. But the thing that they had animals that I'm not sure. I'm not sure there was a rabbit at the cradle, but there was that year, and there was a cat, and there was a duck. There was all sorts of things that children had brought from their farms. But there was this one little girl who was dressed all in pink and had brought a drum. And at the most inappropriate moment, she chose to just bang that drum. So nobody slept through the service, but I'm not quite sure they heard anything else that was going on. But there was such delight in her. It kind of captivated me, and I thought, you know what, I would like to write a story just for her.
Love that. And how did you work with an illustrator? So how does that work to capture the joy, the vulnerability of the character? Tell us about that.
Yeah, Marcin is just brilliant. He lives in Spain. And when it comes to children's books, the illustrator is so important. I did a whole series of books called Gigi, God's Little Princess. But looking at various portfolios, this was the guy I wanted. I knew that.
Okay, hold on for just a second. We're going to continue our conversation with Sheila Walsh and your calls. Our phone number is 877-548-3675. We're going to give away a few copies of Little Drummer Girl. We're going to take your calls with questions for Sheila or sharing your own Christmas traditions, how you keep Christ in Christmas, and more. 877-548-3675. Stay with us. Okay, we're back. Ed Stetzer Live, and we're continuing our conversation with Sheila Walsh. Sheila's got a new book called The Little Drummer Girl. And actually, one of the first questions is a kind of a fun question, but that was a bunch of questions. So we're excited about that. So we're going to start jumping into our calls as well. And again, we're going to hopefully give some conversation that will be, well, I think it'll be helpful to learn a little more about you. So first question is from Karen in Iowa. Karen, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Hello.
Go right ahead, Karen.
Okay. I was just wondering if you, Sheila, still make music CDs?
Well, first of all, hold on, Karen. I'm going to give you a copy of Sheila's book, The Little Drummer Girl. And I don't know, do people make CDs anymore, Sheila? I'm not sure, but talk to us about your music and CDs and more.
Yeah, I'm sure what she's wondering is, do I still record? And I haven't done a project since 2020. In 2020, just before COVID hit, I had gone into the studio and recorded a new project called Braveheart Worship. And I think probably the day it was about to be released, the world shut down. So that became a bit of a challenge. But I still do, when I go out and speak at events, I'll often, you still use music woven into the message, because there's something about the power of music that bypasses all our arguments and all the things that we don't agree with and just goes kind of straight to who we are. So thank you for asking that. I appreciate that you even knew that about me.
Oh, Sheila, I grew up with your music, so it was amazing. So it is amazing. So I love that. I know I could quote songs to you, but I probably shouldn't do that because that make me sound like too much of a fanboy across the pond today. All right, let's go to Kathy in New Hampshire. Kathy, you're live on the air. Go right ahead with your question or your comment.
Thank you for taking my call. Sheila, I have followed you for many years, and I thank you for taking my question. I'm in a very new season of my life. I moved from Colorado to New Hampshire 6 months ago. Everything I own, 98% of it, is in a storage unit. I don't have my own house anymore. I live in a room. I rent, and my husband is in a nursing home an hour away. My sons are over an hour away, but I do see them. How have you ever been in a season where life is just so different, and what would you say to do to maintain a joyful holiday spirit? Now, I read books. I have a wonderful devotional I read this morning. I began singing all morning and singing carols because all my CDs were somewhere in my storage unit, so I just sang them from memory. And I'm trying to find people who I can bless them for their Christmas and help them with buying gifts for their children. Any other thoughts?
Kathy, let me just say, that's great. I love your question. Also praying for you and with you. If you hold on the line, we'll give you a copy of The Little Drummer Girl after Sheila answers your question. Sheila, go ahead.
Kathy, first of all, let me just say I'm so sorry. And yeah, I have been through a season like that. When I was several years ago, I had a kind of mental breakdown and I ended up in a psychiatric hospital for a month. And at the end of that, it was while I was still co-hosting the 700 Club on the Christian Broadcasting Network. But it became clear to me that God was doing a deeper work in my life, and I wanted to be able to spend time to really think through everything. So I sold my house, and I decided to go back to seminary. I actually drove out to Fuller Seminary in California. But I'll never forget that. It was almost Christmas, and literally all I had in my little apartment, my one-bedroom apartment, was 2 white plastic chairs that my mom and I bought at Walmart, I think, and all my books. And I remember thinking, there's something actually kind of interesting about this, because I didn't have the nice house and the nice tree and all the stuff. It was just this simple kind of almost drawing near to the baby. The fact that the infinite became finite for me just blew me away. That my prayer for you this year, Kathy, is that even as you pour your life out for others, that Christ would pour back into you. In fact, Lord, right now, I just pray for Kathy. Lord, I love the fact that Ed's in Oxford and Kathy's wherever she is, and I'm here, but we're all together with you as family. So I lift her up, Lord, and I ask, Lord, would you do something this week that she recognizes as just from you? Just one of those little beautiful things you do that we think, oh gosh, you do see me, you do know. Bless Kathy this Christmas. I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, Phil, I appreciate you praying for Kathy as well. And Kathy, I join in that prayer on this difficult season. And I also know, these holidays can be it can be a challenging time in a lot of ways personally. For me, last year at this time I was here teaching. I teach every December at Oxford, this 1-week class at Wycliffe Hall. And last year I was planning to go to Egypt with my father on a kind of his bucket list trip. And he texted and he said, I'm not feeling well. And we kind of canceled the trip and found out he had cancer, and he died a couple months later. And this Thanksgiving is the first time my family's been together since my dad died. And there's also the loss of the families at the holidays. You feel some of these things. So holidays can be a great time of joy, but also can be a season that we might need additional support and encouragement in the midst of those times. So thank you, Kathy, and we'll be praying for you. Let's go to Eric in Wilmington, Ohio. Eric, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Go right ahead with your question or comment.
Well, my comment was, you guys were just talking about the Little Drummer Boy song and how a little drummer boy showing up with a new babe wouldn't be well received. And I just wanted to express how I have been singing this song for days now, preparing to sing it for my church. And as I sing the words to it, the story unfolds in my mind. And this isn't just a nuisance showing up. This is a little boy who had nothing to offer. So he brought the only thing that he could possibly bring, which was his music. And he brought that wholeheartedly with absolute faith in that it would be received. And as he played, Mary nodded her acceptance to let him play. And as he played, the oxen and the sheep drummed out or stomped out the rhythm, and it was like a divine orchestra playing with him. And he played his very best, as best that he could possibly do.
All right.
As an offering.
Eric,
and
I love your defense, your passionate defense of the little drummer boy. You're singing this at your church. Yes,
I will be here in another week or two. I'm not sure exactly when yet, but I've been practicing it in preparation. But
well, I want you to sing it with all your heart, brother.
Story.
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story. We love the story too. The humor there was my wife, when we had our first child, said maybe a little drummer showing up right after the baby was born wouldn't be the most helpful thing for sleep. But I appreciate your passion about the little drummer boy. And if you'll hold on the line, we'll give you a copy of the Little Drummer Girl to bring out, so you now have the Little Drummer Boy you can sing and the Little Drummer Girl that you can read as well. Love that. Esther in South Dakota, you're up next. You're live on the air. Go right ahead with your question or your comment.
Hi. When I was little, I grew up on a farm, and my dad was a pastor of a small church. we had a family service on Christmas Eve at 4 o'clock. And then after service was over, 5:30 or so, we would gather together and go from farm to farm and sing carols. Then as I grew older, we moved into town, but we did the same thing, except that we would have our own service, and then we would go to another congregation. We would visit 4 different services and be out by 9:30. And we would carol some more, and we would end up at the Catholic Church for midnight mass. That was our big Christmas. Each day of the week after that, until Epiphany, we would do something special for somebody else. Then on Epiphany, when the wise men are acknowledged that they brought their gifts to Jesus, that's when we exchanged our family gifts. So it was like we had a big super Christmas, and then we had a little Christmas later. And that was always super special. And it always seemed to us that when the wise men came, since Herod was going to kill all the babies that were 2 years and younger, some of that must have been allowed for travel time, but Jesus might have been sitting up, 8, 9 months old, 10. They love to bang on things. They love to play little drums when they're, little people. So it could have been that the little drummer boy played with Jesus. We don't, we don't tell that all together.
Super. Hey, I love the Christmas stories, Esther, and I love us leaning into that conversation and more. We're going to continue with Sheila Walsh in just a moment. Oh, by the way, Esther, if you'll hold on, I'm going to give you a copy of The Little Drummer Girl by Sheila Walsh. But call us. Again, maybe share your Christmas stories, or you got a question for Sheila Walsh. Our phone number is 877, or if you want to defend The Little Drummer Boy, our phone number is 877-548-3675. That's 877-548-3675. Hey, we're back. Ed Stetzer Live. We've got one last segment with the amazing Sheila Walsh. So we're going to go to your questions, but we're kind of make them a little bit of a lightning round as we sort of go through these conversations as well. And so let's go first to Maria in California. Maria, you're live on the air. Jump right in.
Hi.
Okay. Maria, we'll come back to you in just a second. Let's go to Elizabeth in Blue Ridge, Georgia. Elizabeth, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. My question is simple, but I would like to know if there is any Christ-centered tradition, Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, and any food tradition that Sheila practices as well.
Oh, I love that, Elizabeth. What a great question. And hold on, we'll give you a copy of The Little Drummer Girl. But Sheila, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a lovely question, Elizabeth. One of the things that we only have one son. He will turn 29 this December. Gosh, I can hardly believe that. But we always, on Christmas Eve, after we go to our Christmas Eve service, we come home and we read the story from Luke about the birth of Christ. And we just have some moments with, we don't have our house lights on, we just light candles. And just have moments of pausing and reflecting and thanking God that Emmanuel, God is with us. So it's a kind of a special, sweet moment where it's very quiet, because there's so much about the Christmas season that's noisy and busy and the malls are nuts. But I love to have that moment on Christmas Eve where the three of us kind of shut out all the noise and just thank Jesus for the fact that he was willing to come.
I love that. Let's go to Maria in California. Maria, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to say I absolutely love you, and I would love to hear more about your book.
Okay. Let's tell us a bit more about it, Sheila.
Well, thank you. That's a lovely question, Maria. And it's a little girl who realizes, and she's based in Nashville, so she's wearing cowboy boots, and she realizes that they're casting for the church nativity play, and she's determined to get the part of the angel because she thinks it's speaking part, I would absolutely shine there. But when she goes to rehearsal, she discovers she didn't get that part. She's actually been given the part of the little drummer girl, and her thing is, there's not a little drummer girl anywhere in the Bible. Well, what am I supposed to do with this? And she's upset, and she talks to her dad about it that night. And her dad opens his Bible that he keeps by his chair and shares with her the real meaning of Christmas. And so the bottom line that she comes to at the end of the book, that I pray will be true for everyone who reads it, is that when you find yourself at the feet of Jesus, you have found the best place to be.
I love it. And I mentioned earlier that it's illustrated. And so, an illustration, I guess parents can read books with illustrations if they want, but this is something you want to be reading with your child, showing your child. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
I guess you say child or grandchild as well. And is it, what age is kind of the range for this?
I think I noticed the book company put from 3 till 7 on it, but I have friends who have 2 10-year-old twins, and they both wanted a copy. So I think you could stretch it a little bit.
I love that. When you think about Christmas in general, you've got a lot of busyness, a lot of bustling, hustling. I'm probably biased or maybe focused on this right now because I'm teaching on evangelism next week here. Matt, what do you see as the gospel opportunity around Christmas time to show and share the love of Jesus?
I'm often drawn back to that verse in Peter where he talks about always being prepared to give a reason for the hope that is within us, which to me means that I should be living a life that raises questions. There should be something about the way I live my life or the choices I make or how I show up that makes people want to ask questions. And I think that's true this season, but I think it's true the whole year, Ed, honestly, that, I look back to my early days growing up in a little Baptist church on the west coast of Scotland. And I felt like to serve God, you had to either be a pastor, but it was a Baptist church, so I couldn't be. So I had to be a missionary. So that's why I went to seminary to train to be a missionary in India. But I realized, no, every single person who loves Jesus has a calling to share his fragrance. And I think we do that by living differently in a way that makes people want to ask, why, what do you know that I don't know?
Yeah, love that. Okay, let's go to, I think it's Asia in Lakeland, Florida. You're live on the air.
Hi, Sheila. Hi, Ed. Just wanted to give a word of encouragement to Sheila that I first heard your testimony and heard about you through David Jeremiah through Turning Point. And I just wanted to give you a word of encouragement to continue to share your story. And I just love the genuineness in your prayers and how you encourage others. I just wanted to just tell you that.
Sounds super encouraging, Asia. You're amazing for sharing that. And Sheila, I concur. You're always such an encouragement. Let's go to, I think it's Rosalie in California. Rosalie, you're live on the air. Go right ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Hi. Go right ahead with your question or comment.
Yes, my question is it okay for Christians to celebrate Three Kings Day? It's the celebration that Catholics observe on January 6th. I came from a Catholic background, and then my parents converted to Christianity like when I was 10. But a lot of my family still observes Three Kings Day, and I was just wondering if it's, as a believer, is it okay to celebrate that, or?
Well, let me just say, Rosalie, I appreciate your passion and caring about these things. Three Kings Day is also called Epiphany, and it's a Christian feast day, for those who don't know, celebrating the visit of the Magi, the three kings, and more. And so just so you know, it's celebrated in all kinds of traditions, including the Anglican tradition, which is the school I'm here at right now. I'm literally in one of the departments at the school. And so Christians all around the world celebrate Epiphany or Three Kings Day as well. So Sheila, I apologize. I didn't need to give a little history, but if you want to add anything to that as well, you jump right in.
No, I think that was a brilliant answer, Ed. And I love that you asked that, Rosalie. But yes, absolutely. And I think what we're celebrating is, I often think, perhaps took them a couple of years to make it all the way to where Mary and Joseph and Jesus were, because it's clear from the scripture that Christ was, maybe a toddler by the time they showed up. And they followed the star. How did they know? And I think when you go back and you look in the book of Daniel, and all the things that Daniel shared, and so they were people who were on the lookout. And I think that's one of the things I take from this season, to be on the lookout every single day. I pray this prayer, God, give me eyes to see what I would miss without you, and give me ears to hear what's really going on. So I think celebrating Epiphany, Three Kings Day is simply saying, Lord, give me eyes to see what you're doing.
Yeah, and I love just the whole story of the Magi. It's, first of all, we call it Three Kings Day, but we don't know that there were three. I think probably everyone's heard those lists of things that may not be true. But I love the fact that it's an early on picture that Christ is actually for not just the people of Israel, but he's ultimately for all the nations. And so these three kings from the East, it would have been a real shocking thing to first century people to read that people from another world, a not of Jewish background or heritage or belief. I love it. Just reminds us that Jesus indeed came for all people, and I just think that's such an important picture for us not to miss. Okay, let me see if we get any more calls here we can put in here. Let's go to Shirley. Shirley, you got your last call, but you got to be really quick. You're live on the air from Florida.
Sure. Thank you so much for taking my call. I have a new granddaughter that loves to actually play with the drums, and I thought, this would be a nice gift for her to give that book. But also, I just heard that you said you're from an Anglican church.
No, Sheila's from a Baptist church, but we're about out of time, Shirley. So let me just have you share a little bit about your own journey, Sheila, and about your own Christian faith, and then point us again, ultimately, to the Little Drummer Girl. We got about a minute left.
I was raised in a Baptist church. My family have been in that church for generations. When I was in seminary, I was part of an Anglican community. I've been honestly, what I look for is a place where they love Jesus, where they teach the infallibility of the Word of God, and where they care for their community. And I think when you find that, you've found a church home.
Love that. Well, good. Of course, what exhortation would you have for people if they're going to get the book in just 20 seconds? What would it mean for them? How would it be helpful to them?
I just think it would be a lovely moment to be able to sit with your family and read through a story that will make you laugh, hopefully, but in the end, bring you back to what the whole point of Christmas is.
Love that. And we appreciate you, Sheila Walsh. Let me thank Sheila for being our guest, even some of our technological challenges. Thanks for sticking with us, all of you. Thanks to our behind-the-scenes team here at Moody Radio, producer Karen Hendren, engineer Merle St. James, associate producer Lisa Gempy, and Cheyenne on the phones. Remember, you can always go to edstetserlive.com to get information about the book and more about Moody Radio. Thanks for listening.